So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I took this basic boring wall and turned it into this really beautiful accent wall just using some basic board and batten techniques. Now this is a really simple DIY project that pretty much anyone can do. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. We're going to go through some of the things I did and some of the things I didn't do, and I'll explain why. But you won't believe when I tell you this, but the longest part of this was honestly watching the paint dry. So let's get started. All right, so for this project, I'm really just using some 1x4 MDF. You could go with 1x3s if you wanted to as well. But I got some 1x4 MDF because of the size of the wall. I've got some latex caulk here to use liquid nails here. Now, the big challenge I see painting first is that if you're using a dark color, like I am here, it's going to be tougher to see the lines that you're going to see for your board and batten. Now, there's ways around that. Maybe use a white marker or something like that to kind of line things out, and then you just go touch it up later. There's different ways around it. I just think it's going to be a lot easier to roll this out now versus getting all the board and batten up and then trying to roll out each little square and then cut in each little square. Now at the end of the video, I'll kind of give you my best advice on whether or not you should paint or put the board and batten up first. But I'm going to go ahead and paint first and we'll see how this turns out. When rolling out a wall, it's best to load the roller with plenty of paint and begin in the center, making short strokes in one direction. Then after most of the paint has been applied, go back over the area with long, even strokes from the top of the wall to the bottom, working your way back towards the center. This technique helps prevent the drips and ensures an even distribution of paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and put an initial coat on each of the boards as well. I'm not as concerned as I know at the end of this. I'm going to have to go ahead and go back and touch up each of the boards. All right, so my top and my bottom pieces, my border is actually going to be longer than the 8-foot pieces I bought. So what I want to do is I want to take the top piece and I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle in it so that when I put the two together, they kind of slide into each other so you don't see that edge there. I mean, yeah, you could have it and then you could caulk it. But I think the better option is to cut a 45 in this, slide the other piece underneath of it, and then you don't see any kind of edge really, and the two pieces just go together better. I also want to avoid having the top and bottom joints line up, so I'm staggering the longer border pieces on the top and the bottom. If you have a stud finder, it's a good idea to locate the studs across the wall so you can secure the border directly to the wall without needing glue. An easy way to do this is to simply find one stud and then measure 16 inches off of it. Now I'm marking where I want that line to be, and I'll cut it off. So yeah, 73/8 is what I had here, and I'm going to mark that. I'm going to cut it right there. And because this is completely square trim, I can go ahead and just turn the saw, bevel the saw the other direction. Now you can cut your end pieces. I save these for last because assuming your wall is the same height from one end to the other, you should be able to cut all the parallel pieces at once. However, be sure to double check the wall height before cutting them all to ensure accuracy. All right, so now that we have our outside pieces on here, if you haven't already, we want to measure our wall. Easy way to do that. Again, it's nice when you have the side pieces on because you can just stick your tape measure in there, go all the way down here, and I'm at 167 is my measurement here. Now, after I got that measurement, and you can do the top as well, I know how tall that is, but we want to determine our spacing. So we need to determine how many battens we want. In this case, I'm going to have a total of 7. So I've got the outside 2, and then I need 5 more. So what I want to do is I can either go online, find a calculator for this, or what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to take that full 167, and I know each of my battens are 3.5 inches. So if I know each of them are 3.5 inches, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the full length at 167, I'm going to subtract my battens. Now, if I have 7 battens, I know that's going to be 24.5 inches. So if I take that 167 and I subtract the 24.5 from that, I know it gets me down to 143.5, right? So then what I want to do is I want to determine how many spaces. So if I have 5 battens out here, that's going to give me 6 spaces between those battens. I want to take the 143.5 and divide it by 6. Now, when I measure this, there's a good chance that not all these are exactly the same, unfortunately. So a lot of times you just got to measure them one at a time. Now, the other thing I want to do, besides just cutting my batten piers here, I'm going to cut a spacer. So otherwise, you're going to have to measure this every time. And if you just cut a spacer, it's just going to be a little bit easier. It's going to give you better spacing, and it's going to be a lot easier to do. So I got my spacer here at 23 3/4, and we'll just put our first piece on. So we'll take our spacer here, and I'm not going to tighten that. I'm not going to nail that down or anything. Of course, you want to dry fit your piece first, make sure it fits. And then what I want to do here, and a lot of people will just put a bunch of liquid nails or some kind of adhesive on the back of this. I don't like that because if it's ever removed, you're going to have a nightmare removing it, and you're going to have to repair all the drywall. So what I like to do is just do little dots as I go up, and I think it holds just as well. So I'm going to start at the bottom, put a bit of this at the bottom, put your bottom in like that. Just making sure it's secured tight up against that spacer. I'm going to nail that. I'm only going to put 1 nail in it because I want to make sure this is straight going up. Just take your level and make sure it stays plumb all the way up and adjust it as necessary. Now for my first piece here, I'm not as worried about my spacing being exact as I go up. I want it to be definitely, but I'm not as worried about it being exact because it's possible this wall is not plumb, and I'd rather have this board here up against this wall versus it being off a little bit. So it's possible this one's not plumb, so I want to make sure this one's plumb so that going forward they're all the same. So just take your level here, make sure you're the same here. And the other thing we want to do is as we go up, just find different spots on here. You know, maybe 4 or 5 of these where we're going to put a little bit of glue here. Again, I'm not going to do it the whole thing because, again, you tear up all that drywall. And if it's ever removed, it's just a pain. And I don't think it's really necessary. You can get the same. It'll secure it just as well, just having dabs of glue like this. But you want to have some kind of glue because you're probably not going to hit, or you're not going to hit any studs most likely. Make sure you have something on the wall. I don't want to set it and then just move it like that because, again, now we're going to get a bunch of possible glue. So I got those dabs there, get it plumb. And that's the other reason I like MDF for this, because plywood a lot of times will have bows in it. So you're going to be fighting that the whole way. MDF is usually pretty straight. So now we can just go through. First piece is up, and we'll just keep doing that till we got all our pieces up. Now, if this is all you're looking for, great. Just touch up the paint, fill in your nail holes, and you're good. I'm actually going to put spacers across the top and actually cut these into 3 sections. Again, I'm going to do pretty much the same process. I'm going to cut a spacer for down here, probably 2. Cut 2 spacers, 1 for each side. Then I'll cut a piece for the top, nail it. Then I'll do the next one. So let's go ahead and get that going. Now, when you put these up, if you can find a stud, hit a stud, and it'll help secure them and tighten this down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a tube of caulk. I'm going to go caulk all my seams, and then I'll hit the nail holes as well, and then I'll come back and touch up and paint the top again. So yes, the project did take a little bit longer than I had originally planned, but from a difficulty standpoint, it was actually pretty easy. I definitely still think I would roll the wall first. I think it saved quite a bit of time, as going back and rolling each individual square would have taken quite a bit longer. I also think by rolling out the whole thing, I was able to get a more even coat, and it really just looks a little bit better. So really for the last step, I'm just going back, touching up the boards, and then cutting in the squares where I caulked and other stuff like that. But it really wasn't too bad, just a little touch up there at the end. But I definitely would recommend rolling out the wall first.